All right, everybody. Welcome back to Stories from a Mountain Town. This is your host, Tyler. Coming to you again today from the offices here at Snake River Brewing. Today with me I have Luke Bauer, Sales and Marketing Director here at the Snake River Brewery. Luke, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, wonderful. And today we have a little bit, some Monarch Pilsners, and we were actually provided a couple nice little glasses. What kind of glasses would you call these?
We've been calling these estate glasses.
Estate. They're kind of like that, kind of that Stella Artois kind of style, where it has a little stem, but it's wide. It's not like a wine glass, but
I mean, there's similar reasons for it. You know, wine glasses have a stem, partially for temperature control. Same with these, so your hand's not just grabbing the glass and warming up your beer or changing the temperature of your wine.
Exactly.
Beer glasses tend to be a little less broad. We don't need quite as much oxygen, to really bring out some of the tastes. Like you do in wine.
Right.
But I'm not really the one to talk about wine. My fiance is the sommelier. I try, but
yeah, I'm a Franzia guy for wine.
There you go.
All right. Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Show.
Appreciate it.
All right. So, sales and marketing director of a brewery. Tell us a little bit about what's your day to day. What kind of things do you do? What are you trying to achieve for the brewery? That kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, we're an interesting brewery. I mean, we're not solely the brewery that does this. We're not magical in this way, but we have a humongous percentage of our profits that come from our restaurant. And even though we sell more beer exterior to our restaurant because we ship, around the region, and we've got 5-ish states that we sell to pretty regularly, it's just, we make better profit margins in the restaurant. And so it's a split kind of job. The outside sales component is a lot of managing logistics and managing relationships in other states or other parts of this state to make sure that, we're getting our kegs and our cans out there. Whereas the marketing component has a lot more to do with bringing people into this space, and whether those are all the locals that regularly frequent here, we want to keep them coming back. But also, any tourists that's coming through. If they only come here once, that's great for us. We still want those people to come in and have a good experience. And, so it's kind of a split position. But I think that ultimately they intersect the way that you present yourself in, Sun Valley, Idaho, and how your can looks or how your tap handle looks and, the kind of relationships you build there. You want to have that be consistent when people come in here too, right?
Yeah. Consistent experience.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you make more money on the food side, because isn't the classic saying for restaurants break even on food and make your money on alcohol?
Oh, no, I just meant in the restaurant space.
Restaurant space.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Beer coming off the tank and, traveling 18 feet in a little, in a hose straight to the tap is pretty inexpensive compared to, putting in a can, putting in a truck,
driving it somewhere.
Driving wherever. So, yeah.
Yeah, when we got done recording the episode last week, Elliot brought me down to the brewing area and showed me the whole setup, all the tubes going everywhere. And I didn't know that the taps that you have in the tap room come fresh from where it's being made.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't really connect it. I thought maybe kegged it and put it out there, but that's awesome.
Sometimes we do for specialty products that we've only done a small run on, but for something like our Pale Ale or our Paco's IPA or whatever, I mean, those are on all the time. So they never go into a keg. They never go into a can unless they're going to leave the building, really. It's fresh off the tank.
Yeah. Yeah, that was such a cool little tour. I've never done a brewery tour, and that one was just more relaxed because we were just chilling, walking around. And then but the part I loved was just how you have beer just stacked to the ceiling of this 80-foot tall room. It was just walking into a church of beer.
Well, I mean, it's cool here too because, I'm certain that Elliot stressed this several times, but we're the oldest brewery in Wyoming. We turned 25 last year.
I knew Jackson, oldest brewery in Jackson. I didn't know Wyoming.
Depends on how you want to measure. The very first brewery in Wyoming existed in the Wyoming Territory before Wyoming was a state, so 1870 something. Down in I want to say Green River, so south of here. that building is still there, and I believe it's a bar, but it hasn't been a brewery since probably Prohibition. So that was technically the first brewery.
Yeah.
Grand Teton Brewing, which is over the hill in Idaho, actually started here in Jackson 30 years ago. So before us, but they moved to Idaho a couple years after they started.
Yeah.
And then we started. So we're the oldest operating brewery in the state.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Whatever way you want to cut it. 25 years operating.
Yeah.
Making beer. That's way before like kind of the craft beer scene that's now super popular has taken off.
I think at the time there were less than 1,000 breweries in the country. Entire country. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's part of why the experience of touring our brewery is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
We've grown into this space kind of organically.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, this building was originally some sort of Coca-Cola like distribution space or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
But then, we took over part of it for the brewery, and then there was still an operating print shop, and then there was a bicycle shop, and we were all in the building. And then as we continued to grow, we sort of moved through it. So if you go into a brand new brewery, hopefully those people have thought that through, and it's really well organized and is super efficient to run, which is not true of us. But I actually appreciate it. I think it's a little more organic to like walk through a space that's grown over time.
Yeah,
which we have, and other breweries maybe haven't.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that it was Fitzgerald's that was in this spot, right? Mm-hmm. That was a cool. One of your beers is called the Fitzgerald something, I think, and in the description it just says, "We named this Fitzgerald so we could get free bike parts." And then I asked them, and I was in there one day, and they were just like, "Yeah, we used to be in the same office space and whatever." So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, our he retired recently, but I guess he left as chief operations officer. I mean, it's we have nebulous titles, whatever, but was head brewer for a very, very long time. Was here the entire 25 years until he retired. But he was and still is a huge cyclist and really a big fan, and that drove a lot of that relationship. And we've got quite a few people on staff that are definitely way into it.
Yeah, everyone here. This is a major biking town. Mm-hmm. Like I mountain bike. I got a mountain bike when I moved here. My girlfriend got like a road bike because she wanted to do that. But like even just like commuting, like it's so popular to commute on bike. Because I mean, if you like live anywhere, from Albertsons to Cache Creek, you can bike to your place of work.
Basically on a trail, yeah. I mean, and not have to be in the street too much. I like it.
Yeah, and even when you do have to be on the road, like everyone's pretty conscious of them. They're pretty good. How many employees does the brewery have?
It's seasonal. I think right now we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 70-ish. Well, we have a fairly large brewing staff compared to the amount of beer that we crank out, just because a lot of our, we have a fully comprehensive staff, and we have a quality assurance lab, which is not necessarily true of breweries of our size. So that's some staffing, and then again, the production of beer for the restaurant space versus the the packaging and all the logistics parts of shipping to other states. Like we have a little bit more staff in that space than I think maybe similar sized breweries that only serve on site.
Yeah.
And then whatever administration people and everything else. So in the summer we can go as high as 100, which comprises more or less like 10% of the brewery staff in the whole state. So,
yeah. And is that a lot of like the food service people that kind of come in for the summer, or is that like brewing operations that just grows?
No, we have a really enduring kitchen staff, which is awesome. Yeah, really keeps our food consistent, and a lot of those guys have been with us for a really long time. Mm-hmm. Our wait staff, we have some really great long-term wait staff as well that have been here in some cases for 8 or 10, or in one case 25 years. Mm-hmm. But that is the space where it's a lot more transitory, and particularly in the summer, you just need an extra 15 folks to be bussers or hosts or whatever. Yeah. And that changes a lot.
Yeah, I've noticed there's a lot of like Eastern European folks that work here. Mm-hmm. And I always wonder this because there's a lot of them here in town in general. Is there like a program that the businesses are like hooked up with to like recruit from these places in Eastern Europe to bring them here specifically?
I don't know a lot about this. Yeah. So my first answer is Google it. Before you take what I say as like complete straightforward, this is true. Yeah. But from what I understand it, there is a particular type of work visa that can be attached to a business if a business chooses to sponsor it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, some large hotel that needs 800 employees or whatever. It's pretty easy for that entity to be like, all right, we're gonna get together with the State Department and sponsor this visa or whatever, right?
Okay.
Why it happens to be a lot of Eastern Europeans at this time, I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, like I know a bunch of Romanians specifically here.
Yeah, no idea. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Because, I moved here 14 years ago, I guess, the first time that I lived here.
Yeah.
And so it was a way different town then and much more homogenous. And so now, regardless of the reason why anyone's here, it's much more interesting that we have 7 different languages being spoken in the building rather than English and Spanish, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't know. I personally can't tell, like, say, Moldovan from Russian or something. But it's like I know that there's a difference, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Because it used to be, it was just a bunch of kids on their like summer break from college or whatever, from wherever, Georgia or something. But yeah, I think it's more interesting now.
Yeah, I like talking to the folks from Argentina and Chile that are here, and I was like, so you love winter so much, you went through your winter and then wanted to come to our winter, and they're like, yes. And I was like, that's awesome. Because I've always thought about like doing a ski trip to Chile in like July.
Sure.
But I don't speak Spanish that well.
Not to mention that Argentinian Spanish is wildly different than, say, like Mexican Spanish or whatever.
Or high school Spanish 1 and 2.
Which is allegedly Castilian Spanish, but that's nonsense too. And, my high school Spanish, I try to go to Mexico as often as possible. And I still can't speak Spanish. Like, I try, and, you dust off whatever every time you go, and you hail a cab and whatever, and then you start trying to talk to the cabbie, and you're like, no, I still can't do this. I sound like a 2-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, mine. I think my ability to speak Spanish, maybe it's just my own view of it. Maybe I sound like an idiot anyways. Gets better the more I drink down there.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's probably good for everyone. But yeah, you get down there and you're like, oh, I do remember some of these sentences. And obviously, baño and cerveza and dinero and here I'm going to tip you, so please serve me good alcohol. All those good things.
I recommend going to Oaxaca.
Oaxaca.
It's like the second southernmost state in Mexico, and is the center of mezcal production. And so I think we all imagine that mezcal is just like smoky tequila, right? Totally not true.
Yeah.
And I did not know that until we went to Oaxaca City, but pretty much any place you go will have a variety of locally produced mezcals from specific farms with specific different types of agave and everything else, and you can get flights anywhere for 100 pesos or whatever, which is nothing, and you can just drink 100 different kinds of mezcal because they're all served in these like half-ounce kind of like little taster shots. Yeah, and that's just normal. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I've only ever been to like Cancun and Playa del Carmen area, just like doing the all-inclusive thing. But that's something that would be interesting, is just kind of get out, maybe like an Airbnb somewhere in a safe area, but like do a little bit of exploring.
Well, I mean, to a large degree, as far as I understand it, like, the border regions are hard because there's a lot of drugs and whatever. And when I lived in Arizona, it was really pretty routine for us to just drive down across the border because at that time there just wasn't the cartel thing. And so we drive down all the time, and you just kind of go wherever and you could do whatever, and it was incredibly cheap and it was safe and it was awesome. I would be reluctant to drive these days, but once you fly down, I don't know. Personally, I've never been to Cancun. I've never been to one of the resort spaces, so I can't really say how that differs. But
I think
we usually just pick kind of a rando spot and hope it works out.
Yeah, I think there was a guy on Joe Rogan's podcast that's like he's now an American citizen, but he works in like kind of border patrol, border stuff. So he knows a lot about the nature of like what areas are dangerous and where the cartel is working at the moment.
Sure.
And he was explaining that yes, there's cartel activity in the Yucatan Peninsula area, in Cancun, Playa del Carmen, but that's where they all are laundering their money through real businesses.
Okay.
So most of the time, like you might be, doing business at a cartel-owned like, gift shop or something, but it's
actually, that totally makes sense. I was in Brooklyn the other day, and apparently there's a huge back and forth between Brooklyn and like areas around Tulum,
Mm.
And so we were talking to one of the business owners there at a cidery, and he said essentially the same thing, that like, you know, so many of his counterparts, like not in Brooklyn, but like when they go down there, are directly dealing with cartels, and that's really the only thing you can do, and parts of it are potentially frightening, you know?
Yeah.
But there's so many places that you can go that are essentially just like Brooklyn at this point, you know? They've like mirrored certain restaurants, and
Oh,
it was this whole tangent. It was really pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's a legit business, so you could buy a T-shirt or a drink or something, and it's probably going to be okay. But it's just their way of laundering the money.
Sure.
But yeah, and then there's horror stories and stuff just because of
my buddy got drugged and robbed, and
like the club scene, just because there's so much partying and the money from the Americans. It's gonna happen there, even if there wasn't. Even when the cartel hasn't been as active, it's been still there. But yeah, so go back to you've said a couple times, and Elliot mentioned this too. You've come and gone to Jackson, living here. This is your fourth time now. Third time.
Yeah.
Kind of the boomerang effect. Go back to your first time coming to Jackson, whether that was on a trip or when you moved here, and talk about what did you feel when you first saw the Tetons? What kind of energy did you get from the people and just the whole town? And I know it's different than it is. It was different probably then than what it is now. But go all the way back. What was your first?
Well, comically,
feeling?
The very first time that I came here was in 2003, almost entirely by accident. Several friends of mine and I were backpacking in the Wind River Range, which is, I don't know, 60-ish miles from here.
Yeah.
I'd never been to Wyoming. I really didn't know what was going on, and we were in the woods for like 28 straight days, and had some horse-supported meetups where we'd get food drops, every 8 days or whatever. So we were out for a while. Were
you like going from like point A to point B, or just like we're just gonna hang out in the woods?
No, it was. I mean, if I pulled out a map, I could probably show you where we were. But yeah, we had intended to do this really lengthy kind of route and set up pickups and whole things, whatever. But so, day 28 or whatever it is, we finally get out, we get picked up, and we're driven back into town, into Lander, which is, over that way. And we were just starving. We totally miscalculated on the wrong one, and we're out of food, and we'd been out of food for like 3 or 4 days, and we had all shed 10, 15 pounds, and we were just freaking out. And so we've been talking about food for days.
Yeah.
And so my one buddy and I, we were like just freaking out. We really wanted sushi. And so we started asking around and went to a gas station. We're like, where can we get sushi? And you should not buy sushi in Lander. I don't even know if you can, truthfully, but it wouldn't be my first thought, right? Mm-hmm. But they were like, oh, well, all those rich folks over in Jackson, they have good sushi. And we were like, done. So we just hopped in the car and drove over here, which is, 3-ish hours. So by the time we got here, the sun was down and I never saw the Tetons. I had no idea that they were there. I really knew nothing about Jackson or about Wyoming. And we went to this place called Nikai, which no longer is open, unfortunately, but had this really great sushi dinner. And then turned around and we spent like $400 or something. And then we turned around and drove back to Lander. And that was it. So that, I didn't know anything about Jackson.
Okay. You just knew that you liked that sushi.
Yeah, great place. And then years later, 2007-ish, I guess it was 2007. No, it was 2006. Doesn't matter. In any event, there used to be a magazine here called Alpinist Magazine that was a sort of long-form alpine climbing journal, essentially. Mm-hmm. And I was brewing beer at a brewery in Wisconsin at the time, but imagined somehow that I could make money as a writer, which I think we all know is not true.
What city in Wisconsin?
Madison.
Did we talk about this? I think with the first time we met. Yeah. So I'm from the Twin Cities, so I've been to Madison a bunch of times.
Yeah. And I lived in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
So I imagined that I could be a writer, and so I found this internship. Well, actually, this is relevant. It turned out that the guy that owned the brewery was laundering money from something else through the brewery. Started bouncing paychecks and everything else. So basically, the whole staff quit, and we were all looking for new jobs. So I found this internship with this Alpinist Magazine place in Jackson Hole, which I had been to, but had essentially forgotten that I had been here because I had not seen the Tetons again, and I didn't know what was going on. But it seemed cool, and I was like, yeah, okay. So applied, got the internship, and basically packed my stuff in my car and just drove out here.
Wow.
On the way, I called a friend that I knew from college just to chat, and it turned out that her sister had moved here and that she herself was visiting her sister. And so we just met up came to the brew pub, not knowing,
That's awesome.
we're going to grab a beer, like in, college days or whatever.
Yeah.
And decided basically over a beer here that she was just going to stay here too, and we were going to get an apartment. And that's sort of my first brew pub experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're still friends now. I went to her wedding not terribly long ago.
Awesome.
So it was cool.
What was the brew pub building like back then? Because they kind of you guys got the restaurant sort of setup you have now, like a couple of years ago. So is that just like bare bones, like just beer and?
No, it looked pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of changes that have happened over the last 15 years or so are all mostly in the upstairs and the addition of that upstairs bar.
Yeah.
And that whole other section and that sort of upstairs patio and everything. But I mean, what you see when you walk into the front doors was there from day one.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so
people have been standing there in the entryway with their mugs since day one.
On the mail rail up the ramp.
Yeah. I always laugh when I see that because there's like plenty of bar seats, plenty of tables available, but the diehard fans of this place are always standing there, even if there's not enough room for everyone to be on their elbows on that ledge. They're going to sit on the railing or just clog the walkway.
Oh yeah, it's
and it's my bad for walking through there to go get food because they've been here for longer than I have.
It's bad interior design. I am also one of those people. I love it. That is where I want to be in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a bottleneck for sure. It makes no sense.
Yeah, because it's like right next to the door. You're going to get the cold breeze if you're in the winter.
But again, I will do that until I die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic. So,
yeah. I do like standing and stuff like that because I sit, all day at a desk. So
sure.
I need to stand more. I had a question that is escaping me now. Oh, and then, so you moved out here for the internship, and
internships don't pay well.
Yeah.
I needed to work. So my very first thought, since I'd been working in a brewery previously, and we'd come in here and I immediately thought the vibe was fantastic, right? So I was like, oh, I'll go back there. And I did 2 or 3 days later and applied to be a brewer. And at the time, there was one of the brewing staff was thinking about leaving. And so I was sort of like on deck, right? Mm-hmm. But in the interim, they're like, well, do you want to like wait tables or bus tables or whatever? I was like, yeah, I mean, money's good, right?
Yeah.
You need to make money. So I did that, and I did that for quite a while, actually. Never became a brewer here. Then I left the first time, I guess, and worked for a brewery in Texas for a couple of years, down in Austin, and covered all East Texas, and threw kegs around in Dallas and Houston and San Antonio or whatever. And left Texas. It was a bit sweaty. I was not a fan. Austin and to a surprising extent, Houston are actually really fun towns. Like everyone talks about Austin, but Houston's got some sleeper coolness to it. But I was just kind of driving around and spent some time in Nevada and Utah and out in California. And then I was like, oh, I should probably make money again. And called up my boss here and was like, hey man, can I go back on the schedule? And he was like, sure.
Yeah.
And when do you want to start? And I was like, well, I could be there in 3 days. And just drove up from, I think I was in Utah. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Came back. Spent another, 8 or so months here and lived in the back parking lot in my car, which was pretty enjoyable for the summer. I would recommend that, anytime between, September and April. But
what made you and keeps you now like in this microbrewery or brewery industry that you like? Is it just you like beer? You like being around beer, or is it?
I mean, I do very much like beer.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty interesting product, and combines some elements of agricultural, kind of production that it shares with good wine, but it's also an industrial process at the same time, much more so than wine is, right? And so, like, you sell wine on romance and story specifically, and like kind of the terroir and everything about this particular vineyard and this aspect of sun on this hill and everything else. And
there's a fog that comes into this valley.
Sure, and that's
affects
like
the grapes in a certain way.
It's like a legitimate thing. I mean, that's true.
That's Columbia Valley, is that example.
Sure, and I really, really appreciate the storytelling that goes behind the wine, right? And in beer, we don't quite have that opportunity, with the exception of very specific breweries that have had the kind of financial resources to like build their own farms and then grow their own hops and produce their own barley, and there are a small number of breweries that are essentially taking the winery route, right? By controlling every single controllable that they can have that romance. But for most of us, we're all buying our ingredients from a relatively small number of sources, right? We're all using, by and large, the same hop strains. And so for us, it's teasing out those flavors from essentially the same ingredients by how we tweak process, right? Mm-hmm. And so that I find really interesting. Yeah. Even though I'm no longer a brewer, and I'm truthfully not a tremendously talented brewer, never was, right? Like I can follow a recipe, but I'm not like our head brewer that can come up with something,
You'd be like, we'll add a little bit more of this hop, and this will make us a good APA versus an IPA or something like that.
Yeah, and there are much more talented people in that space than I am, but I still find it really interesting. Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting that so many people have come into this industry either disgruntled or just tired of other industries in a way that, if you're say an engineer, and you engineer bridges, right? Yeah. There's a fairly high chance that you and every single other bridge engineer in the world went to like one of 5 schools and know exactly the same people and do exactly the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's good. We shouldn't have experimental bridges, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good
We need bridges that work, yeah.
Right. But you can experiment here. And so, one guy I used to work for in Texas for a long time was a microbiologist that worked on like the Human Genome Project. And then he was like, I'm going to make beer. And then started a brewery. The head brewer there used to be in a kind of like hardcore band called the Jesus Lizard. I don't know if you're familiar, but
no, I'm not.
Late 80s.
I'm going to look him up right now.
Yeah, they're pretty entertaining. But he was a guitarist or bassist or something in this like seminal like hardcore band, and then left that to become a brewer, Mm-hmm. And those two guys worked together, and that's a really weird partnership that you would never have expected, but it's interesting, right? And I think that happens pretty regularly in this industry. It keeps me around. Yeah. Specific to this brewery, I just like the vibe here, There's a lot of good continuity, and there's people that are hanging out down on that mail rail that, I've been talking to for 13 or 14 years, and mm-hmm. they've been talking to some other guys for 25 years, and I meet those guys. There's a lot of good local continuity here, and as we add new people to the brewery, it kind of stays. Yeah. And living in Denver, which I did for a number of years, and working for a different brewery in sales, I don't know, there's 200 breweries in Denver, right? But many of them make phenomenal beer, but I never once got that same vibe. It's just too new, Mm-hmm. And even the breweries in Denver that have been around for 20 years still didn't have that same level of continuity because it's a big city, or big-ish. I mean, it's 3.5 million people, whatever. It's not a real city, but compared to here, it's, wildly crazy big city. Yeah. And just the turnover happens differently, That's just how cities are, and that's something that I really like about cities, and I like to go. Like I said, I was in New York like a week ago. Yeah. It was fantastic, but you don't get that same community-oriented vibe that I do here. So this has always been my model of like, if I want to go to a brewery, I want it to be like this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you ever been to the Santa Rosa area or heard of Russian River Brewery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been, but I know their beers.
Yeah, but that whole area is a good combination of what you were just saying. It has obviously the wine because it's total wine country, mm-hmm. but then it has a bunch of really cool breweries, and so you can combine it. And if you're like either a wine or a beer person, it's just like such a cool spot because you can get, there's just like a row of like really cool breweries, really cool wineries all in a row, all in the same area. So it's a really cool combination of that.
I feel
those two ideas you were saying.
Mostly confident that my brother and his wife went there for their honeymoon. I think sounds very familiar.
Into Santa Rosa. Yeah. My girlfriend and I went there in October. Okay. So I have my stepmom. My stepmom grew up there, and so I have my step grandpa and step aunt and uncle. A few step aunt and uncles actually that all live in the area, and so we. It's just a cool.
Do you go step by step?
No, I don't know. We're so close.
That was too punny.
My reaching for a light beer to chill you out, easy drinkable. That's why, like I said, I drink Franzi all the time because their stuff's super drinkable because it's just like they didn't put all the extra effort into it to make it like this heavy flavoring.
Probably adjunct like a bunch of corn syrup into it to just give extra fermentable sugars or something. But
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't make fronds yet.
Yeah. Only God does.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so let's sorry, 1 second. Yeah, so let's go into so now you said you're back for the now second time.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a sales rep? Or are you just like a wait staff type person?
I was right back on the floor waiting tables,
Mm-hmm.
and had a great summer. That was actually, that's 10 years ago. That was a fantastic summer. It was really fun. And unlike the previous time when I had the additional job, I was just here. So I set my own schedule and got to get out in the mountains a lot more and get in the Tetons and, get out on the river a little bit and do some of the more Jackson things. So even though, the outdoors has been important to me for a really long time, one of the beautiful things about this place is that it's pretty accessible. Even if it's incredibly challenging, you can, in theory, walk out your door, climb the Grand, and come back and go to work. It's you got to be swift, but certainly people have done it, right?
Yeah.
That may be an extreme example, and that would be the Grand Teton for those of your listeners that are not paying attention. But and that's great, and that was a great summer. But living in your Jeep over the winter isn't a great plan. Didn't seem super compelling to me. So I decided to leave and move to Colorado where the weather's nicer. And was literally driving to Durango. And then a buddy of mine that I'd worked for in the past called me from Denver and was like, "Hey man, do you have a job right now?" I was like, "Nope." So I took a left and headed to Denver. I was there for a couple of years doing marketing and communications work for a nonprofit, which I like the nonprofit's mission, but I don't particularly like sitting in front of a desk all the time. Mm-hmm. And so that got a little boring, and I don't know, 2 years into that, it was a while. A position opened up in Alaska at Alaskan Brewing Company, doing essentially the same thing, marketing and communications. Uh-huh. And I always thought Alaska would be kind of fun. Yeah. So I broke up with my girlfriend and just kind of took off and drove to Alaska, which she was not thrilled about. Yeah. Yeah, I was in Alaska for a bit and working for Alaskan Brewing Company, and they were fantastic and still are. Like, really great brewery, super classic. They've been around for 30-something years, so longer than us.
Theirs is their big one's the Alaskan Amber.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the classic American craft beers. Their smoked porter, I think, is still the most award-winning single beer ever at GABF. Whoa. So they make great products. And it was cool to work up in Alaska, but, after a winter there, it was kind of like, no, Colorado does have pleasant weather. What's
it like? What city were you in there?
Juneau.
Mm-hmm. Does that get affected as much about with the lighting? Like, what was how much daylight is there in the winter?
Shortest day of the year in Juneau, officially, I think, is just over 3 hours of daylight.
Jeez.
So they're relatively south as far as might be like 3.5. We could Google that too. But the problem with Juneau is how the mountain ranges that surround it are oriented. It doesn't really matter that officially you get, 3.5 hours or whatever, because an hour plus of that, it's behind one mountain range or another anyway. Either rising or setting. And that's assuming the sun comes out, which is rare there. They get about 300 days of overcast, 110 inches of rain every year. So like kind of the northern extension of that Seattle kind of climate. But
is it on that strip that's like paralleling Canada and almost basically connects to America? Yeah, or continental America?
Incidentally, we still have a border dispute with Canada going on that has been going on for like decades. Pretty close to Juneau. It's up on this ice cap, and they can't figure out like under the ice where the official marker is. So technically, we're in a border war with Canada.
Oh man,
fun fact. But so that was company cool. Living in Juneau, not so cool. So after a bit, asked to be transferred to the sales team, and it was basically a coin flip between back to Denver or to Los Angeles, and the coin flip turned out on Denver. Uh-huh. And so I moved back to Denver and then covered Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico for a number of years as a salesperson. So I was still coming up here actually pretty regularly and kept in touch with everybody here and, maintained those relationships. And so after years of doing that and managing that territory, the sales guy here left and wanted to go do something else. And so they called me up and I was by no means the only applicant in that space, but I think having worked here twice before was helpful at least. But I assume that there were some other qualified folks too. But yeah, it was great. So, contemplating that and leaving Colorado after, 6 years or whatever, that's a long time to live in a place. But
yeah,
at least for me. But it seemed like a great move, like to come back here and for all of the reasons that I already listed, that this place is great. Made sense. It was a good call. I was like really happy to come back and feel immediately welcomed back into it.
Yeah. What's the sales process like for just kind of beer in general? Like, so I think I might mention I'm in high tech sales. I sell processing and platforms and professional services to banks, and so it's this big B2B sales process, and there's a lot of depending on who you're speaking to at the bank, how do you approach them and all that, and some of it's cold selling and some of it's a little bit of warm and stuff like that. So what's the sales process like? Like as a seller, do you have to, is there those cold calls? Do you walk in? Is it the idea that I have in my head is just like you look at a bar's cooler or a liquor store's cooler and you say, oh, you need some Pacos, you need some Jenny Lake, you need some of this, and like here's your bill, here's your invoice.
Well, after Prohibition, so 1933, right, 21st Amendment, the repeal of Prohibition essentially left it up to each state to regulate how they wanted to do that. And so there's no one quick and easy answer because it varies a lot by region. But in most cases, we are legally required to sell through a third-party wholesaler or distributor, and that's just true across the board, right? There's exceptions that are carved out for self-distribution under certain volume caps and yada, yada, like, Technobabble, whatever. So in almost every instance in beer sales, your distributor that you have to work with, like you have to work with a distributor, but once you've signed a contract, depending on the state, it can be easier or harder to change that contract. In some states, you're essentially there for life.
Yeah.
So you've got to work through your distributor, and in almost every instance, your distributor is going to have just way more opportunity to see each individual bar or liquor store or whatever on a weekly basis. The supplier, like we supply the beer to the wholesaler sells to the retailer.
Yeah.
So supplier reps inevitably like just can't see the same series of bars the same number of times that say like Joe down the street does or whatever. So you always rely on your distributors first. You want to find out from them, what's going on, how does their territory look, where are the opportunities, excuse me. But the actual process, is not that hard. People are very rarely upset with you if you show up to their bar and sit down, bring them free beer, and then also hand them money to buy one of the beers that they already have to like spend the time and talk with them, right? Because you're already then a customer, and that dynamic is great. Like, hey, I just gave you $5 and a free beer.
So you'd go in like with the 6-pack and then just like buy what they already have and like talk about like.
Not every single bar, otherwise I'd be dead by now. But the targets that I definitely like want to spend more time in.
Talk about like, hey, like what kind of beers you go through a lot. Where is there any opportunity for my brewery to come in and do something here?
You find out what this is so much more relationship based than necessarily product based. Like it certainly helps to have a good product. But, but I certainly know bars in other parts of territories that I've sold in that carry almost exclusively really terrible beer.